All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Business Planning Clinic. I think today's topic is like right on time because it is in the shift book. And read that title of that one for me again, Lauren, since you have my book.
It's create urgency, overcoming buyer reluctance.
Yes, creating urgency, overcoming buyer reluctance. As I was sharing with Lawrence and Angela earlier, I actually came into real estate during a buyer's market, and this, in my personal opinion, worked out nicely for me. I honestly thought a buyer's market was easier than a seller's market. As I gained experience, I realized that that was incorrect because seller's market, you just list a house and it sells itself basically. Whereas a buyer's market, you have to be a little bit more diligent as a listing agent to get a property sold. You got to be able to think outside of the box. You got to be on top of marketing, and you got to respond to agents. I know there's a lot of hurt buyers agents out there because listing agents wouldn't even respond to their text message and say they received an offer. So can't get away with that in a buyer's market. The shift is definitely happening. Are we fully into a buyer's market? Not quite yet, but we are on our way there. Like Virginia Beach is still very competitive, so is Chesapeake and parts of like Yorktown and Williamsburg as well. So these areas that were already being sought out, there's still a pretty strong market. But what does it mean to be in a buyer's market? What are some opinions that you guys have? I know that y'all are newer to real estate, but you might still have it especially you, Angela. I know you go to like every class that's ever available. So I feel like you have more knowledge than some very seasoned agents just because of that. So what do you think determines a seller's market versus a buyer's market? What makes a buyer's market?
I would say with buyer's market, the buyer has more than
Yes.
because they can ask for a little bit more than in the seller's market.
Buyer's market. All right. So they have more of an advantage. So what does that mean in terms of the offers?
I guess they may offer a little bit lower than what the listing price.
A lower price. All right. What else can we get?
More homes in the market.
More choices. Yeah. What else does that mean?
More availability for them to be able to buy the homes. Now,
like not rushing their decision.
Now,
Yeah.
of course, we have a little caveat in that our interest rates are also normalizing.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being in the mix, is kind of people are still hesitating.
Right.
So
So that's the scared part, right? So why are they scared? They're scared because of the higher interest rates. What else are they scared of?
they won't get the price, they won't get the house they want. The seller outbid them. They're afraid that
They're still feeling the pain from the seller's market.
And they don't want to pay that. They're not trying to pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for asking.
And then would it also be fair to say that we've been hearing a lot of a market crash?
Oh yeah. Well, definitely the news has been a real beating our tail when it comes to the information, because people don't do anything but hear that. They don't try to research on their own. That's why
exactly
that's our job, to make sure that when we see these people, we tell them exactly what's really going on with our own numbers.
I feel like you can come up here and teach us class. You hit all them bullet points that we're going to actually go over in this class. I love it. Yeah, so this is the scared part. And then another thing that we can get in a buyer's market is their closing costs. Well, I guess it is only technically, I'm not erasing it. Y'all know what I mean. So in a buyer's market, where we need to stand out from the other agents is making sure that we're staying informed. That means knowing your loan programs back and forth, and then understanding the market and what you can get for your clients is going to be what separates you from everybody else. Now, how do we start conquering their fears? Because the fear is a legit thing. Like, we had a market crash in 2006, and a lot of people lost a lot of money and a lot in their homes later on when they got foreclosed on and stuff. So how do we overcome that fear? What's the difference between now and then 2006, 2008?
2006 and 2008, there was a gluttony of homes. People were getting loans and they didn't have to really qualify for them. That's why it's so hard now.
Right. The loan programs were a lot more lenient, right?
They just went by what you said, basically. And so there were a lot of homes. That's not the case now. There are
I
homes.
before E except for after C.
See, yep. So
Nobody's judging me for my spelling, right?
but now the homes are, you still have, I mean, people don't have that kind of weather. We have homes and we have homes to buy and homes to sell. So you have a good mix.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about having all these homes out there and no one's buying it because they're all in the fall.
Yes. What else is some differences between the market crash then and now? So, all right, so the loan programs were different, right? So they were getting qualified for houses that they shouldn't be qualified. There was no standards with making sure they can actually afford the home. The interest rates were super inflated. They were like, we'll let you buy whatever house you want, but you're going to pay for it, right? Which also drove up the sales price. The appraisal stipulations were practically non-existent. So the home might have only been worth $72,000, but they paid $135,000 for it. And that actually happened to one of my clients. When I first got licensed, I short sold her condo. Actually, it ended up going into foreclosure because we couldn't even get it done in time. But her condo at the time that I listed it was only worth $72,000, and when she bought it back in 2006, 2008, she paid $135,000 for it. And she was making her payments, but the house, what she owed on it was way more than what it was actually worth.
A lot of people bring those arms too.
Yes.
Yeah, and that put people, they understand, yes, it's low now, but that will escalate as time goes on.
Exactly.
People was buying, they didn't understand what they were buying.
Exactly.
Loan product.
And those ARM loans, like those might be good for like an older person who doesn't plan on keeping the home because they know that they're not going to live there for 30 years. They know that they'll probably die before then. So it might make sense for them to be within their budget. You laugh, but I'm actually not making a joke, Lawrence, I promise. So they might take that because they know that, they don't have that much time. But at the same time, that's not a long-term investment. That's a short-term investment because they're like, when I'm dead, well, it don't bother me no more, I'm dead. So
the prices go up so high.
They do. And it's usually a very high jump to where they can no longer afford it. And everybody knows cost of living just keeps going up. So if you're on a fixed income, like somebody who is retired and stuff like that, you can't expect to have that money later because it just doesn't exist. So you have to make sure that your clients understand an ARM before they actually get invested in it. So how do we help people overcome this? So we talked to them about the difference between 2006 and then now, so that they understand that this market here was driven by the consumers, like we were talking earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Driven by consumers. So yes, the interest rates were really low, but that was a good thing. That wasn't something that inflated the market. That just gave more buyers the eligibility to buy higher and possibly buy when they weren't able to afford before. So that was a bonus, but that's not what drove the market. The consumer actually drove the market because now it was, I'm willing to give you this much money more than what it's worth. They did it to themselves. We didn't get to participate. Now we just told them how to go about doing it. And if you were a good agent, you made sure that they made an informed decision before signing over their firstborn child. It's college fund and your retirement. So like this was in my personal opinion, was a tough market when I did have buyers who agreed to pay a significant amount more. And then we're risking the buyer's remorse later, because how many of our buyers actually got the first house that they wanted? Most of my buyers had to write at least 10 to 15 offers before we got into contract. That's not going to be the same in a buyer's market. They're going to find one and they're going to negotiate, and they're going to learn how to negotiate. And it's going to be a lot different, but driving the consumer driven thing is going to be a lot different than what we experienced back then, because there's a lot more stipulations still in play here. They have the appraisal, they spent their savings, they didn't take out another loan. Whatever they do afterwards, that's on them. But during the market, they took out their own money. We didn't actually have any involvement with that. So paying from the seller's market, there's not a whole lot that we can do from that. Like when they were offering 3 and 4% interest rate, and they were still losing out. And now they're in a different market where their interest rate is more like 6 to 7%. It's like their payments are a lot different, and they don't qualify for as much house anymore. So they're like, well, now I can't even afford the house that I want.
Sellers also remorseful too. I'm dealing with a referral.
Hmm?
The client, I've had her for a year. I referred to another agent.
Yeah.
So it was over $1 million. She ended up putting a whole bunch more stuff in it. And we said, Angela, has you only sold it in April. So see, now she's feeling remorseful that she didn't sell when she got mad at him and everything else. No, you went and did all this fancy schmancy stuff. So now you have outpriced yourself.
There you go. And it doesn't matter what market you're in, you would outprice yourself no matter what.
So now with what's going on, it's not selling as fast. And
Yeah.
he's giving all the stuff, all the things you're supposed to do as a decent agent. And so now her husband's finally saying, okay, we'll just, work with what we have.
Mhm.
Because they're remorseful and they didn't sell it earlier.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get a piece of this thing. They think they make it all pretty, but it's not about always being all pretty. You have to do yourself.
Honestly, there's no way to predict when the market is going to shift. You're only going to know when it shifts right after it shifts. So in their case, they should have realized as soon as the interest rates started going up, they should have slapped their house on the market and hope for the best, because at that point it's already too late. Like, you need to go ahead and try to be as proactive as possible. And when you're in a buyer's market as a listing agent, you're going to have these tough conversations with these sellers because they do have that emotional attachment to a home. But like, I understand that you got that Sub-Zero fridge and that's super cool. However, you were the only one in the neighborhood with it. So it's not going to impact your value as much as you think it should. And then when you're in a neighborhood where everybody's got Sub-Zero fridge, but like, yo, you're just holding the standard. And so it's going to be tough to have those conversations with your sellers in the future, because you want to make sure that you're hearing them, but also that you're giving them the facts. You don't want to sit there and say, well, we can try, or anything along those lines, because they're going to be disappointed and upset with you if it doesn't work out later.
I was told on my class, I said, before I see you guys, is that you have to have that tough conversation as a listing agent, by the way.
Yeah.
Even to a point of putting it in your contract when you sign with it, because they have to know, here's my facts, here's what the research I've done, forget about the souls, forget about 60 days, here's what it is in the last 30 days. This is what we have. This is the expires, this is the, the active, these are the pendings.
Yep.
See how long it's going to market. So now, what price did you want to do again? And you have to show them that.
And you have to show them the pictures too. That's why if you ever make a CMA on rating, that's why you have the opportunity to include the photo gallery or not, because the photo gallery is going to show them what those houses look like. I typically don't include it because like the CMA is already a lot of pages, and when you start including the photo gallery, you're giving them a phone book.
I haven't done the whole thing, but even if you would take the information and pull it over as a graph form, so you can see what's going on. And sometimes for some people, especially those are just they need that.
I am recording, yeah.
Okay, I just didn't want to kick you out, but Chrissy said that she got kicked out.
Well, she logged out and then she's saying that she can't get back in, but I don't know what happened. I don't know why. And nobody else. I double checked Facebook. Hold on, let me pause so you guys don't hear me. All right, sorry about that, guys. We're having technical difficulties. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so you have to, as agents now, we have to be more on point as to what we explained to our listing. Now, people who are selling and buying. The sellers, they have to be aware that they want a price, and when we're just consultants, you can say, okay, you're agreeing to put this price in here. I'm gonna say I'll do this for the next 2 weeks. So if we don't sell after opening house, everything else, we're gonna drop it by so and so. You have to put that in place in advance. They want to
Yes, expectations.
Yes, set the expectation. Because I've seen some of drawings, it's $100,000 less. So, oh my gosh.
Right.
So you have to, most of the draws are the people who don't want the price. I mean, I've talked to a couple of them, so no, the agent didn't want to do something else alone.
We can't take on, so let's think about our expenses as a listing agent, right? Because there's a lot of stuff as far as marketing the property that we don't have to bear that expense up front, but you have to realize it's still your money. Your MLS dues, your hurrah dues, whatever you're invested in, your office monthly fee, all of that money, it helps pay for the technology that you use to boost it. And you need to have that mindset, because even though it may not be any immediate expense out of your pocket right then, you're still paying for it. And then anything additional to that is still money off of your pocket. The time on the market, like, you can list the house if you want just to say that you have a listing, but if you're not able to sell it, what good is that really doing you, and how much money are you losing in that process? Like, I pay for photography for all my listings because I want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward. I always try to make sure that I'm marketing and pushing it out on social media, which means that I might be paying to boost it.
Right.
And if your clients don't necessarily understand that, then they're not really seeing the value in you anyway. So you might not want to really mess with them. Now, let's say that they're not that far off the mark, right? Let's say that they're listing probably about 10 to 15 high, and you agree to take the listing, and then you set the standard for, hey, if we don't get any showings or offer within the first 2 weeks, we're going to go ahead and do a price drop. Go ahead and have them sign off on the price reduction addendum, but just don't date it. Just so that they know, hey, this is already in hand, but I won't push it through until we hit this date and this activity has happened. That way they know we're doing a price drop in 2 weeks if we don't have it under contract.
There's another term we use, they said price drop, they said, adjustment.
Price adjustment.
Because it
That's
sounded
better, that's
better
better
than
words.
the
It
top.
is
Yeah,
better
I know
words.
it's better, but-
It's different words.
Yeah.
So when you say price drop, you're all of a sudden taking away value. And even though it's not true, we're just trying to sell it for its value. But like, we want to make sure that nobody sees it as something wrong with the property and it being discounted. It's so funny when people are trying to go to the doctor's office and they're peeking in through our doors.
Oh,
It's back that way, guys. So as a listing agent, you want to make sure that you stay focused on setting the expectations and making sure you have a very streamlined process for your marketing. But let's put our focus back on buyers. How do we help buyers understand why now is the time to buy, even though it is technically a buyer's market? You think it would be a no-brainer. It's a buyer's market. Of course you should buy now. But the fear that they have is a legit thing and may keep them from pulling the plug. So what do we focus on when we're talking to our buyers about buying?
I actually focus on the monthly payment. I let them know that despite what you are eligible for, you never want to go over your monthly payment that will allow you to still pay your other bills.
Sure.
So I get the focus off the whole amount and put it on the monthly payment.
On the monthly payment.
Right, so you do this, and you do that, and this is what the monthly payment will be. So now, if you're eligible for $1 million home, but you can afford $8,000 a month, well, then you don't have to get $1 million loan.
Right.
Just get to where you can afford it.
Exactly.
You can work that out.
And because we know rent prices have already gone up, so it should be easy. We're just like, for the price you're paying in rent, this is the house that you can get with, and just kind of like help. You don't want to dabble too much into it because there's a lot of things that go into play with what they qualify for and what their actual monthly payment will be by the time you get there. But letting them know that they can probably get something of equal value house-wise for less than what they're paying is going to be a real thing, just because the rent prices are inflated right now.
I had to tell a buyer that he was like, "Oh my God, I have to give $1,700 a month." I said, "But at least you'll own it."
Yeah.
You need $700, just on Emerald Lake somewhere, for an apartment, that's crazy. This, at least.
You're building equity. Yeah. And then you're building the potential for a future. So like when you grow out of that area, you can either sell it or rent it out. So you can have residual income right there if that's what you want your future to look like, or you can turn around and sell it. It's no matter the market, you can always sell the house. But if you're looking to sell it during a seller's market, good luck trying to time it. Let me know. Give me the winning lottery numbers. I never play, but I'll play that day. So the biggest thing that you want to focus on when this marker was supposed to be a great marker, the lies we tell, is your buyer's why on why they want to own versus renting. So there, you'll hear different questions. What are some objections that you'll hear from buyers on why they don't want to buy, aside from the fear of the market? What are some other things?
They're kind of, I guess, scared because I guess when you buy a house, they see that as more of a responsibility.
A bigger obligation.
As opposed to rent.
Yeah,
It's really-
absolutely.
They just pay the rent, whatever.
So a commitment at that point.
Yeah.
What are some other things?
Embarrassment over their credit rating.
That's also true. They don't want to be told no.
Mm.
They don't want to be told no. So that fear is very real. One thing that we hear often in our area is like, I don't plan on living here that long.
Ooh. Yeah, Belgium.
I'll be like, oh, how long you lived here? Oh, I was born in Norfolk. Oh, when you leaving? It always cracks me up when the people are like, oh, I don't plan on being here that long, but they've already been here all their life. So how do we overcome some of these? So the commitment fear, that's just going to be like a little bit of a grown-up situation that they may not be ready to hear.
Mhm.
So you just got to kind of figure out, well, where is the fear really? Are you afraid that you won't be able to pay it? And then they'll be like, yeah, that's quite the commitment. But like, do you pay your rent on time every month?
You
And
know,
if we
that's
keep
like-
you below your rent or right at your rent price,
Yeah.
If you don't ask the questions, you really have to ask questions to find out where they're coming from.
you got to
sometimes
ask and
the
listen,
questions-
right?
Ask and listen, and just let them talk, because you'll find where it is that's really keeping them holding them back. You'd also find out why they fell or buy in the first place. They may be
Yes.
coming around grandkids. I got my last question, like from left Massachusetts, came down here for grandkids. And
Yes.
the reason they have, but they.
You have to focus on their why. Their why is what's going to drive them to buy. And sometimes their why is not strong enough. Sometimes their why will not make them a good buyer. Sometimes you'll have to sit there and wait, be like, you know what? Maybe they really aren't ready to buy, but keep them in your pipeline because it will change. They're just not there yet. You've got to nurture those. And then is when it comes to their credit score, like Chrissy said, what we focus on there is like, hey, everybody starts somewhere. I love to bring myself up as an example because I feel like I'm a good one. When me and my ex-husband split up, my bad boy was a 420. So, and I won't smoke a weed that day. That was just, excuse my bad joke, Thomasina, if you watch this later. But, it was a 420. So we all start from somewhere and it takes time. Does that mean you're going to buy in a couple months? No. Does that mean it might take a year? Does it mean it might take 2 years? It might. But the only way to overcome that is to get the financial education that you need to push that. That doesn't mean you go to college. That means talk to the right people. You guys, you talk to you and you talk to your preferred lender who is happy to take the time out to educate your buyers. Lenders do work harder during a buyer's market. You will see their customer service go through the roof during a buyer's market. Good luck getting them on the phone during a seller's market. You either qualify or you don't qualify. Like, they don't have time to spend with the buyers at that point because there's so many of them. It's just on to the next one. But I have lenders who will sit there and look at a buyer's credit report and give them some focus points. We need to focus here, here, and here. You need to pay down this credit card debt and keep it below 30%. You need to make sure you're paying all your bills on time. Did y'all know that if your if your client, it happens to pay a bill late, you got to wait 3 months to get it cleared off of their, because they look 3 months behind to see if they're paying their bills on time. So good clean slate of 3 months, pay your bills on time. Yes, we have to be grown-ups. Accidents do happen. And usually if it's something does happen, you can give an explanation. But if it's a consistent thing, they're not going to be able to overcome that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So when we're focusing on their why, that's what's really going to set us apart from the other agents because we're caring at that point. And you want to make sure that you're really hearing them on what it is, because if it is grandparents who want to be closer to their grandkids, there's a sense of urgency there that we're not necessarily tapping into because it just sounds like, oh yeah, I would want to be near my family too. But when you're grandparents, you already understand that your time on this earth is limited So it drives your why to be there. I'm picking on old people today, but it's not on purpose.
I noticed it.
But it's just more of a sense of urgency. And you want to hurry up and help them get there. But you want to streamline the process so it's an easier transition. And then you got to drive the point, well, where are your grandkids? What is it about that area that they like? Because you don't want to put them, so let's say that their grandkids live in an area that their parents plan on moving out of in the next year or two. Well, where do they want to live? If you put the grandparents in that area already, guess what? You got to return by another referral when they're ready to buy. They're like, oh, you help my parents and I really would like to be in that area that there are. Because you focused in on their why. You gave them reasons to go ahead and push and make the move. I see everybody else that joined. Hi guys, y'all missed my bad jokes earlier. So when it comes to the interest rates, there's not really a whole lot we have control over that because it's affected by the market every single day, right? Those are always going to be changing. So how do we help buyers overcome that fear of the interest rate? Because the 3% and 4%, that was a gift. As a gift we might not see again for a while, but that was a gift. Wasn't when I got into real estate, the interest rates were like 7 to 8%.
Yeah, sometimes 18, some places. Yeah.
So I saw this one phrase on Facebook, probably, I don't even know where it was. And I'm going to try to remember it to the best of my, so I can regurgitate it nicely, but it might not come out that way. You buy the house, not the interest rate. What do y'all think that means? Other than buy the house, not the interest rate.
I mean, you're actually buying what you want versus buying what the actual interest rate is. So
Exactly.
it could be the location, it could be whatever.
Exactly. So when people are picking a house, they shouldn't pick the way that the house looks on the inside. They should be picking the location over what the house looks like, because you can change the inside, but you can't change the location, right? Now you apply that same concept to the house versus the interest rate. You can change your interest rate, but you can't change your house, right? So like if you pick the house that you want, when the interest rates do drop, you have the opportunity to refinance it and get your interest rate driven down. And that doesn't matter if the interest rates drop, like obviously it's a no-brainer, but even as you build equity, you're going to have the ability to adjust your loan to drive that interest rate down, drive that payment down. So if they're in fear of the interest rates are temporary. What if they keep going up? Then what are you going to do? What if we start seeing double digits? Are you going to regret not buying? So that's why you hit them in the why.
And I tell people, I said, you can't assume your rating is going to help you when it comes to buying.
Exactly.
It's not going to go down.
Exactly.
You know, and I try to let them know this was like equaling out to where it should have been if it wasn't for COVID. You know, so we gotta see how things are as they stand today. You know, this is where we are now.
Exactly.
You keep waiting, it could be 6, 7, 8%. We don't know.
Exactly. So if you have, you're going to have to excuse my crude drawing. So if you have a graph and the market's going down, like when do you decide to buy? At any point, because you don't know when it's going to start turning up, just the same as you don't know when it's going to start turning down. But if you can help people understand that this safety zone right here, this is really where you should be focusing on buying and selling your house. Does it mean that you're going to be always buying low and always selling high? No, but it means that you won't be down here or way up here. And if you hit it right after the curve, you're still good. You just got to move very quickly. And trying to help your clients understand that just means that you're helping them stay informed. You're keeping an eye on the market. You're looking at the hot sheets on your MLS to see how many days the houses are staying on the market. As we see them start staying on there longer, then we know we're in a shift. Now, if there's a house that's an outlier, there might be a reason why it's on the market longer than the rest. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind too. But if the average day on market in a particular area that you know is a strong area, then we know that we're in a shift. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to more choices, how do we get to use this as a selling point for our buyers?
Selling slow.
Yeah.
It's a lot slower than it was before. You take your time to tell them that, but you can, be able to see how you like, and you can take it. They don't have to feel like they have to so rushed and scared. I'm driving right now.
They feel a lot more confident in their house choice. Sure, go get that money.
Holly? Holly,
Yes.
I can't hear Angela or Lawrence.
Though they're on the other side of the room. So Angela was saying that when they have more choices, that the buyers don't actually have to feel rushed. They get to take their time and they get to feel better about the decisions that they're making when they come to pick a house. That's the difference in a buyer's market and a seller's market. Like, how many buyers in a seller's market were like, let's just write an offer. We need to move. We're out of time. Make sense?
Right. Buyer's remorse.
Buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse. So when it comes to more choices, one thing that I got to do as a buyer's agent was, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I took sellers to the cleaners. Like, I'm like, we want this, 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 and this, because they were desperate to sell their house. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to cross that moral line, but at the same time, you can make sure that your buyers feel great about the house that they're getting. I've gotten new roofs. I've gotten new appliances. I've gotten fresh carpet. I've gotten fresh paint, like whatever we needed to do to get the deal done. I even had a VA buyer get credit towards their car note. They bought down the car note debt because it was going to make him more qualified to buy. So the seller gave the concessions to cover that. Crazy. What about you, Chrissy? What's some crazy stuff that you've gotten for buyers?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
I know
I'm
the
trying to-
list is long, right?
The list is long. I got a buyer a camper, like a really nice brand new one time.
Okay, I need the backstory on that one. You got a camper?
Yeah, as a gift.
So was the camper already the sellers and they were just gonna
Yes.
wait for them?
Yep. Yeah, the buyers wanted it. We wrote it in the contract.
All right, Chrissy wins. I thought I was doing good at a roof, but I didn't get I didn't get a camper.
Roofs, HVAC, new pool liners, like you name it, bulkheads redone, like, in a buyer's market, it's what's gonna get that house sold at something that is acceptable to the seller.
Exactly. Acceptable to the seller is always key, because it doesn't necessarily mean a win for the seller. It just means not as much of a loss. Like,
Right.
as an agent, we always want to try to create a win-win situation for both parties, because you never know who you're going to represent later, right? Like, you might do such a phenomenal job as a listing agent that buyer calls you to sell the property when they're ready to move again. Like, you want to make sure that you're being fair, but being diligent in representing your client.
100%. And I mean, I think it's gonna be, as we shift in this market, it's gonna be a little weird, because sellers are gonna think that they can still have what they want, and it's gonna be a very rude awakening. So we're gonna have this little like pause break, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah. Angela was actually pointing out earlier that we're going to have to make sure we're setting our expectations with our sellers before we even go on the market.
Yes.
So when it comes to closing costs, we have different loan programs that help guide us on what our buyers qualify. Do you know what an FHA, how much closing costs you can ask up to that the loan allows? It is higher. It is higher. Anybody at home know how much you can ask for an FHA buyer for closing costs? What the cap is?
Is it 6%? I feel like it's 6, but I'm not sure.
Chrissy? It might be 6% if it changed, but it used to be 4%.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah,
Makes
it
sense.
might be, because I think VA is 6%, but VA may have moved to 8%. So I might be wrong there. We're gonna have to ask a lender. If I have one standing around, I'd drag them in here.
I think the only thing you can get 6% on is like, it's like a, so in a buyer's market, a lot of lenders will come out with what they call a shelf loan, which is a conventional loan that matches FHA requirements. And I think that's the only thing I've ever gotten 6% on.
I've seen 6% for VA. That's all I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fulton Bank had a shelf loan a couple years ago during a buyer's market. I was able to get 6% on that.
Yeah. So y'all can double check with your lenders, but the amount of closing costs that you're typically allowed to buy, this is my understanding, and I might be wrong. FHA is up to 4%, VA is up to 6%, and then conventional, depending on the type of conventional, can be 2 to 3%. I have seen plenty of 2s. What does that mean for your buyer who needs like $8,000 to close? If they're buying at 200,000, 3% may not cut it. You know, so you have to know the numbers, which is why a good conversation with the lender to understand what their loan required, what their loan allows, and what the sellers are willing to give up, because that's off the seller's bottom line there too. So if a seller in a buyer's market needs to sell, but their bottom line that they can walk away with doesn't allow them to pay more, you still have to prepare your buyers for that. But like, you can get this house and we can get X, Y, and Z, but here's where the seller has to draw the line, which is why as a listing agent, you're going to need to know and understand your seller's bottom line, which is why we don't do dual representation in our office, because we know too much. If we're a good listing agent, we know too much about our seller situation.
Why do they allow that in state of Virginia? Most people don't use it.
Because we're greedy. I don't know the right answer here, but I'm assuming there was the right people at the right time that wanted to do it at the time that they were pushing that through.
A lot of states don't have it, but we have it, and most people don't use it.
North Carolina has it too. Yeah. You still have to disclose. No, North Carolina is very weird. Very weird. But
What-
you want to make sure you understand what they're allowed and what that will actually cover, because certain loan types don't cover a plethora of things. I mentioned earlier that I had a VA buyer where I got his car note paid down. We were able to ask for, I think we got the full 6% on that very ironic day. And he needed it because he needed to pay down his debt in order to qualify better. And the seller agreed. But you can't do that with like an FHA or conventional loan. You can only pay down certain things. Some closing costs will only cover certain things, which is why we have that additional verbiage. If you attended my contract class last week, which is why we have that additional verbiage that sits there and says allowed by a lender. But at buyer's discretion too, which means that we don't have to necessarily disclose we want this money to do this, but the seller may ask and they may choose to release that information, because I had that conversation. I'm like, look, he's qualified to buy the house, but we gotta do this right here. Listing agent presented it to the seller. Seller was like, you know what? Been sitting on the market for 2 months. Might as well go ahead and do it. I need to move. They understood it. Yeah. Because in the buyer's market, they have a lot more leverage than what they realize. So when you focus in on their why and you talk to them about the leverage that they have, you're going to be a lot more successful as a buyer's agent. And you have to be a lot more tactful as a listing agent.
And you have to be able to talk to the listing agent, and listing agent talk to buyers.
Communication is always going to be key.
Yeah. Very.
Nothing is ever going to substitute communication. And if you have an agent that's not willing to talk to you, like, I mean, I've done a deal before and we got it done, but at the same time, I can't say that I didn't want to drown him in the toilet the entire time. Just saying, drown him in the toilet the entire time.
Because they all try to help, you know, it's like, you have to make that communication, make that relationship, you know.
Yeah.
If you can.
If you can. Yeah, exactly. Let me see my book. Let me make sure, because I feel like I covered everything in 45 minutes, guys. Where were y'all? Sorry about my link earlier. I don't know what happened. Make sure I didn't forget anything. In my class today, you get to hear me sing. Oh, buyer scripts. Let's talk about some buyer scripts. They're not listed in here. It mentions it in here. So when you're talking to buyers, what is a good opener? Like you already nailed the appointment. Like, I'm getting in front of you, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna talk to you. how do you start opening up the conversation to drive them, to qualify them as a good buyer? Not just getting them pre-qualified, right? Because who likes to talk about finances in the first 5 minutes when you're meeting a stranger? Not me either. I'll tell you all day I used to have a 420 credit score, but I'm not going to go tell somebody else that. It's nobody's business.
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but what I would do, what I do, once I have the appointment,
Once you have the appointment,
I always submit, your buyer's presentation.
mhm,
I go over the secret, because that's part of the contract anyway. Let them know what's going on as a buyer in this state, you are, is buyer beware.
mhm,
So here's certain things you have to look for. And then I'll have them sign the broker agreement, saying that you satisfy with what we're gonna do. So yeah, it's okay, whatever. And so I have them sign the broker agreement, and then I start the process of, moving for a house, getting them, on the road.
so before you dive into the paperwork,
Okay.
how do you get them, how do you qualify them as a buyer? Or do you just immediately dive into the paperwork?
So you asked me whether, when I'm talking on the phone, whether they're, willing and able and ready. Oh,
Yeah, because when you, so I guess it kind of depends on whether or not you're qualifying them. So whatever point you're qualifying them, whether it's before your buyer's consultation or at the buyer's consultation, how does that conversation go? And where do you meet these people? Like if you're, it's really hard to cold call buyers, right? Do you just go down the phone book? Do they even have phone books anymore? Like, I don't know if they have phone books anymore. Do you just go down the phone book and start cold calling
my
buyers?
gosh, there's some phone books,
I'm old enough for phone books, trust me. Delivered a few in my days.
Actually, I have a lot of CRMs that I do a phone call, but I talk to them and find out what, because they'll let me know a little bit in the CRM when I get them, buyers interested in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll call and say, oh, I see you interested in Williamsburg, are you looking for a two-family? I mean, I have to do that. It's a two-family house, it's a condo. If you want, and I'll find out all those particulars. I say, well, that's fine. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. Can we go ahead and meet? And so we get everything settled. I'll show you a couple of things I can do and get some paperwork in and we'll start looking. So I will ask those kind of questions. Is it going to be a condo? Is this going to be you? Are you the only person that's going to be on the, with the, things like that.
Mhm.
And once I get that taken care of and find out and they're happy with that, then I'll, make the appointment, and get going.
Okay, so great tactic, but I haven't heard you identify their why in that.
Right, so the why in most cases is, let's say, one guy, his why was, I like Williamsburg upstairs when I was in college. And I like the fact that I can walk to different things. Or you can have someone say, I like the fact that you have brick buildings in Williamsburg.
Mhm.
Or the why could be, I'm just ready to move, or it could be because I'm in the military. One lady, she's in the military and her husband hasn't decided to leave yet. So he wants to move to Virginia Beach as soon as he's available. So that's her why. So I nurture her, I stay in contact with her. That's usually always a reason.
Right.
It can be something that's, like I said, as simple as I want to walk, around versus driving everywhere.
Right.
There's always a reason.
And there is always a reason. So like if I'm meeting somebody new and I just happen to be out and about or whatever, and I'm having a conversation with somebody, because we're supposed to always be marketing ourselves, right? But that doesn't mean we're actively in the moment to market. We just see an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody new. So a good opener is, oh, how long have you lived in the area? And then when they tell you that they've been here for a while, just be like, oh, have you ever thought about buying a house? What is keeping you renting? And then when you ask those qualifying questions, you get to help identify their why. Now, if somebody seeks you out and you purchase buyer leads, then you already know that they want to buy, but we don't necessarily know what their qualifications are for buying, whether or not they're pre-qual, whether or not they're actually driven to buy. Because how many of those leads are actually just people window shopping? People love Zillow. They be on there every day. It's gonna be my house in the future. I need 5 garages so I can like park my scooter. Like that's what they sound like in my head. I don't know. So you want to make sure that you are creating the opportunity for the conversation to naturally flow that way. And it takes practice. It's not going to happen over time. You're going to feel a little awkward at first, but you're never going to see that person again. So like, it doesn't matter if you mess it up. But if they've been in the area, or if it's in Virginia Beach, guys, people love Virginia Beach way more than they probably should. But either way, if somebody loves the area, be like, oh, well, why don't you own a house? What's keeping you from buying a house? And then you can help them overcome that obstacle. You know, because the housing market in Virginia Beach is crazy, but so is the rental prices. Wouldn't you rather be paying rent to own it versus hanging out in an apartment complex that won't let you have the dog you want? Won't let you paint your room?
$1,700 a month,
Yeah, won't let you put the flooring in that you like.
great.
I mean, I have somebody, this is gonna be a referral, because they're in Panama City Beach, Florida.
Mhm.
And I've been talking to them, and they've been renting for 10 years, and I just said, so when you decide to move, what are you getting out of it? You know,
Yep.
Nothing. I said, if you had a house for that long, you would have some equity in it, so if you decided to move, you could sell it and have some more money. So I got to call them later today and talk to them and see where they are before I get a referral.
Here's a great marketing tactic. I haven't seen it in a minute, but now that it's shifting into a buyer's market, you guys go ahead and pull out your pen and write this one down. You take what the average rent is in that particular area, you times it by 12, and then you times it by 30, and see how much money they didn't spend that they could have spent.
That's what I was gonna tell you. You said, we actually give them the dollar amount. that's-
You give them the dollar amount, you hurt their feelings,
It hurts.
hurt their feelings.
I'm glad you reiterated, because I'm about to say that, 'cause that's really a big thing. I mean, I forgot what it was, and someone came up with $54,000. Now here's this, you paying this to whoever.
I cannot tell you how many buyers I got off of that little diagram. And there's some lenders that have that diagram already with their information right on the other side. Yeah, let them know. Just be like, how committed are you? And if they're like, I'm not gonna be here that long, I'm in the military. Cool, then you bring out your little investor hat, you put it right on there, but like, you have all of these wonderful VA benefits that will allow you to buy a property that you don't have to deal with a landlord on. You could do what you want and truly enjoy your home in the school district for the kids that you want. And then when it's time to leave, you can either choose to sell it or you could choose to rent it out. Like, I've done that tactic quite a bit. And it's very appealing to like the younger military guys because they're like, oh, money. I want to make more.
Yeah.
Give it to me. Knowing the VA benefits is really, really going to help you out in this area. Did y'all know that y'all can have your VA buyer buy a duplex, rent out the other side that will cover the cost of the mortgage, live for free, and then turn around and rent out both sides when they leave and make profit right out the gate?
I heard that right here in something.
Probably heard it from me because I love to bring it up. It's a great tactic, and all we have to do is just be informed about what our clients actually qualify for and understanding their why, what's driving them to buy, what's keeping them from buying. Make sense? What's my time look like? Looks like I'm finishing early. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything, guys. Do y'all have any questions? They're at home?
No, thank you.
Can we see the diagram that you're talking about?
The one that I just mentioned about the multiplying the rents over 30 years?
Yes.
I'll have to find it. I can make y'all one, but it's not going to be as pretty as the one that I used to use. Oh, before I finish, so we discussed overcoming buyer reluctance, and we also discussed tapping into their why. So we covered that. But let's talk about be the local economist of choice. So one thing that I was taught when I first got licensed is always be the resource, not the expert.
What's it, page 179?
Mm-hmm. Look at you highlighting everything about that page. Would you like to teach it, Angela? I'm gonna have Angela be my substitute teacher if I ever can't make class. I was like, go ahead, Angela, you got this. So this is just driving the point home about being informed about our market. This means understanding interest rates, understanding how long houses are spending on the market. And this applies to both sides, being a listing agent and a buyer's agent. So when we want to focus in on that, we also want to be a resource. We don't want to just be the mouth. We want to make sure that they're getting the information, but we also want to give them the links to seeing and reading it for themselves. People are going to believe you a lot more when you can show that you're credible. I can't drive that home enough. Be credible.
And you know, the non-reports and everything, I used to not pay attention to that. It's like, why am I paying for all this crap? I don't even look at it, but within the season, I've been reading them and those reports are on point.
Yes.
They can even get to the point where it's your local area, like 23320, which is my zip code.
Mhm.
But we have to know where, if someone buying or selling, we have to know that area, that market was.
You need to know your market area.
It's national, you know, we need to know the local.
Yes, it's good to like know the national guys, but you need to be the expert in your area. And it could be focused on a zip code. It could be focused on a neighborhood. We are Hampton Roads. I kind of like spread myself like that because it's important for me to understand that they can move in wherever part of the Hampton Roads and I still got their back. And then for all you new agents that may not know an area, when we talk about fake it till you make it, we mean it. That doesn't mean don't do the research afterwards. That means you still have more knowledge than they realize, and don't let the one piece of information that you don't have lose your credibility over that, because you have the resources that they necessarily haven't tapped into. Make
Well,
sense?
Well, that and like you guys are attending class. These people don't attend class.
Exactly.
Learning this stuff constantly. You are the expert compared to that person.
Exactly.
You
There,
don't hear it, you're not gonna be able to, you're not gonna be able to iterate it.
my favorite phrase that I used to use when I first got licensed, when somebody would ask, how long have you been licensed? Feels like forever.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah,
I think so
feel
for you
like
to take-
forever. That school took forever. Feels like forever. And they usually are satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And then once you start building up momentum and actually doing deals, then you get to brag about yourself. You can brag about the office too, but like I work at a great brokerage. We do this amount of sales per year. However you feel comfortable doing it, because I'm pretty much a straight shooter. So it's really hard for me to, even with a white lie, it's really hard for me. So I got to a point where I was doing enough deals, even though I'd only been licensed for like 4 or 5 months. When somebody asked me that, and I told them, and I said, now ask me how many deals I've done, because they need to know that you're credible. But if you're not credible yet, you hit them with the feels like forever. And then you text who you need to text. Hey, what's the answer to this question? It's like, oh, I'm taking notes. I want to make sure I got all your information so I can remember it for later.
I asked our lovely lenders, the closing costs allowed for FHA and VA. VA is only 4%, FHA is 6%.
Are you sure?
That's what I got back. I asked the lender.
I gotta double check on that because it has always been the other way around.
That's what I thought too.
You said FHA is what?
Well, the lender that she asked said FHA is 6% and VA is 4%, but I'm not.
Well, I'm about to
I'm 100% convinced.
he's quoting me 3.5.
Yeah, it is. But just double check with your. I don't mean to question your lender because I'm not saying that they're wrong, but something had to change.
100%
I've never seen
convinced.
it reversed like that. But I think some was it. I don't want to say your name wrong. Azia. No, tell me how to say your name, baby. Deja? Is it Deja? You might not be at her computer anymore. Somebody had said that they thought it was 6% too.
Nope, I took a Google.
You took
It
a
is
Google?
% for VA.
Huh?
It's 4% for VA seller concessions.
Well, that's new. Glad we
Yep.
talked about it.
Google has confirmed.
Google has confirmed. That's new.
For VA. How much
It
for
should to
FHA
a-
is apparently 6% now,
Yep.
which that's all new. It didn't used to be like that.
That's why we always have to ask our lender questions.
Always, always, always confirm. When your buyer is getting ready, when they're getting pre-qualified, which is hopefully before you're taking them to see houses, You always want to have a conversation with the lender that they're pre-qualified through so that you understand their circumstances better. The lender is not going to give you their financial information that's going to make them feel uncomfortable with you knowing too much, but you still need to know how aggressive can I afford to be with this offer? What do they need? How can I make this deal get done for them?
Can I say this? Okay, so I have an app for mortgage news daily.
Yes,
So the 30-year FHA is 4.62.
That-
30-year VA is 4.70.
is that the interest rate? Okay,
Now the fixed is 5.13 for general, for the, loans in general. Yeah, and the ARM is 5.30.
but we don't ever want to quote those rates because we can't guarantee those rates, right? Because it's all going to depend on their debt to income, how much they make per year, and their credit score. There's a lot more things that go into play for
And
that.
that's why I tell people, that's not my lane. I mean,
It's not my lane.
in a heartbeat, I say, I know there's something.
I'll turn my blinker on, get in that lane for a hot second, then I'm gonna get right back over and give you the number to who you need to talk to.
That's one of the things I also do too. If you don't have a people 12 hours old, you have a lender.
Mhm.
And I have them because we qualify since we came out anyway. So all the things, especially this one may happen, but I was asked because they will be able to tell you what you can qualify for.
Right.
You know,
Last thing I want you to do is fall in love with a house that I can't sell to you.
that's right.
One of
I-
the things,
Go ahead.
one of the things I tell buyers that are reluctant to get pre-qualified because they're embarrassed about the amount they might get pre-qualified for is, look, that's between you and the lender. It's not about what you can afford, it's about what you want to afford. That way they can pretend that that's what they want.
Oh,
Right.
gotcha.
They want to live within their means.
Yep. I give them the out. I give them the option of disclosing that to me.
And I always like to give them like one free one, right? Because if you're buying buyer leads, they may not trust you enough to sit there and talk about their finances yet. So I'll do one free one. I'm like, okay, I'll take you to go see this house. And then while I'm in front of them, I get to build that rapport and build that trust. And I always manage to bring it up in conversation. Like, yeah, so what lenders are you talking to? And I make sure that they're shopping around at that point too. That usually always helps as well. So that hurts my feelings about the interest rates flopping on them. I mean, I'm happy for the FHA people. Yay, we get 6%, but sad for the VA people because we have a lot more of those in our area. So that means with them only being able to get 4%, that they have to understand if they're buying a house below 200,000, that they might be coming out of pocket because 4% may not be enough to cover all their closing costs. It'll be close. It will be close, but it won't be enough. Make sense? Make sense to everybody at home?
Yes.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up because that was pretty much all that I was covering today. So I appreciate everybody who stopped in and said hi, and I will see you guys next month. All right, bye guys.